All right, we're going to wait a few minutes for people to come on. Today we're talking about checking the area. Hopefully, none of my spelling mistakes are too atrocious where you guys are really bothered by them. Whew. Kind of cold in here tonight. Wait for a few more people to come on, and then we're going to get going with this video. How are you guys doing? I know it's late. I know it's very late. Just got off ship. Great timing. Awesome. I think you guys are going to like this. Another classic whiteboard video. Slightly better angle this time. So hop on in there. We're going to be talking about checking the area when we get calls of shots fired or a fight in progress. When we get there, there's not a whole lot that we see. And I need you guys to leave some topical comments and questions about what we're talking about here as we're going along. Sorry about it being flipped around. It is what it is on there. It's going to be right side, facing right side when I post it on YouTube. Because we're going to edit this up and make it into a nice YouTube video for everybody. Awesome. All right, we got 13 people on, 12 people on. Whoa, people are leaving? Come on, it just started. You want to find out about finding shell casings on the street or the excitement of tumbleweaves and shoes in the middle of the road? Come on. There's 19 people watching. I'm watching it go up. I am, brother, I am. I am back on midnight. So we got 20 people on. We're going to start. The 20 of you that are here, leave me some topical comments and questions down there. As you have questions that come up, throw them in there, and we're going to take that at the end. All right? So we're going to get the A camera rolling here. We're going to rock. All right, today on Free Field Training, we're going to be talking about checking the area. This is from our police training series. It's kind of the 101 level stuff, the stuff you need to know that they don't necessarily teach at the police academy. Give you a little life experience to try to up your self-initiated field activity and get you better self-initiated field activity when you're out there on patrol. This is mainly meant for police officers. I'm sure it is always very applicable for security guards, especially those that patrol some of the rougher neighborhoods, which I know quite a bit about. So you get the call of shots fired or a fight or something else suspicious in the neighborhood. You respond out there and you don't see anything immediately. There's no people fighting in the middle of the road. You're not hearing anything. You're not seeing anything that's completely out of the ordinary for the area. We're checking the area then. And what does checking the area mean? We're going to be looking for signs that something happened and signs that something very bad happened that we're now responding to. Especially shots fired and fights. You'd be surprised how often we get there and everybody clears, and then in the morning they're like, oh, look what we found! Or, somebody comes in an hour later and says, oh yeah, I was beat up in the road. So we're going to start off with the most obvious thing that we need to be looking for, and that's bodies. We need to be looking for bodies, and that's not always easy. A person laying on the ground is what you're looking for, and if we're looking for a person laying on the ground, we're expecting to see arms and legs and a torso. Whether that person's alive or not is immaterial. We're looking for things that are out of place, that are lumpy, that are the size of bodies. So if you see something that kind of looks like a plastic bag sitting over by the curb, hey, go check it out. Make sure that it's actually just a plastic bag sitting in the street. It's kind of odd in urban and suburban areas to have things that are going to be the size of a human body that are just kind of like laying on the curb, laying on the sidewalk, laying between houses especially. With this one, get out of the car or shut the radio off, roll your windows down if you need a large area to cover. But it's always best to get out of the car, walk past that row of cars that's parked on both sides of the road, look along the curb, get out, look between buildings. Part of the reason you want to get out of the car or shut the radio off and roll the windows down is because you might hear people yelling for help. And that, even the FBI would call a clue. You hear somebody yelling for help, you know there's a direction you need to go into. You could have somebody that's seriously injured. Now, while we're looking for bodies, we also need to be keeping our head down on the ground in the area in front of us with our flashlight and be looking for drops of blood on the ground and also personal effects that people might have. And we're going to get into some of those personal effects up here in the future. But if you're out of the car and you know that this is kind of the area that you're in, let's say you have ShotSpotter, you have somebody say, hey, I saw somebody shooting directly in front of my house. You need to be out looking around. And some of the things that you're going to be looking for out there, of course, shell casings. Now, I have a whole video on looking for shell casings. I'll link that up there and down below. You should check it out. There's some techniques to looking for shell casings that makes it a little easier, especially on flat concrete. But you want to be looking for shell casings. Shell casings can be sometimes very easy to find, and sometimes they can be very difficult to find. Very small 22 caliber shell casings in grass are very difficult to find. Very large, like 45 caliber or 10 millimeter shell casings or rifle casings that are sitting on concrete or asphalt are fairly easy to find most of the time, especially when they're brass or they're a nickel casing. They tend to reflect light back a lot at night. These things are easier to do during the day, but let's be honest, when does this stuff happen during the day? Not very often. Well, it does happen during the day, but that's not what we're going to be training expecting. Expect to have this stuff happening at night and to be finding these things at night. Flashlights become a big thing. Whole video on that. Shoes and tumbleweaves. Everybody's favorite, the shoe and the tumbleweave. When people get into a fight, for some reason, the weave in the hair tends to get torn out and left behind, and also shoes tend to get lost. And I guess this is because people don't know how to tie their shoes. I don't know what it is. I see people walking around all day and they've got untied shoes and they're walking down the street. Well, anyway, shoes and tumbleweaves, if you get a call of a big fight and you see a weave laying on the ground, good chance you're in the right area, unless it's just one of those random tumbleweaves. Generally, you can tell by whether or not there's leaves and twigs or garbage stuck in the tumbleweave. An older tumbleweave is going to have sticks or leaves or garbage depending on the time of the year, whereas a fresher tumbleweave is going to look like it just fell off the head. It's going to be fairly clean. Shoes can sometimes be difficult to find. They'll end up underneath cars, but most of the time when you find shoes, if they're black shoes at night, it's going to be kind of hard in shadowy areas. That's why we got to get that spotlight out, start shining it around. Also, things we need to look for: wallets, backpacks, and weapons. You'd be amazed how many times I found knives or guns laying in gangways, between houses, laying in alleys, laying especially up against curbs, between cars, even on top of cars. Things get thrown all sorts of different directions when this type of stuff happens. So keep a lookout for all of those. Backpacks are more during the day, directly after school. You have kids fighting in the middle of the street. They'll shed backpacks. You also get T-shirts laying on the ground, stuff like that. So keep an eye out for those. And then, of course, damage. Damage is huge and also really embarrassing when you don't notice it and it's something obvious. So you get that spotlight out and start shining it at anything that might show damage to you. So houses with vinyl siding, especially white vinyl siding, you get holes and cracks. If you got good eyes still and it's up close enough, you can see it fairly easily from the street. But what you really want to get in the habit of doing is get that spotlight out, get those alley lights on, those takedown lights, those high beams out, and start looking at glass. And glass has this reflective property where it only reflects back to you if the glass is still there. So if a window gets shot and it gets broken completely out, when you shine a light at it, it won't reflect back at you. Also, when you shine a light at glass and there's a hole in it and it's spidered out, the hole in the spidered out area is going to look darker than the light reflecting from the glass. It makes it very easy to find holes in glass. You shine that spotlight on it, or if you're out of the car, shine your flashlight around, get it up in those windows, and see if you find broken glass anywhere. So those are 4 real easy things for checking the area. They're going to make you a lot more efficient at it. Make sure you use that spotlight. Anything that's big enough to be a body, go check it out. Get out of the car, roll your windows down, shut the radio off, listen, and then once you realize that everything is not dangerous anymore, start looking on the ground for your tumbleweaves, your shoes, your wallets, your backpacks, your weapons, packs of cigarettes. How often you have somebody leave a full pack of cigarettes on the ground? That's not a normal thing with the price of cigarettes now. Shell casings, we have a whole video on. Go check that out. And damage, make sure you use that spotlight. Also your alley lights, your overheads, every light that you can after you realize that the situation is not still live. So until next week, you guys be safe, take care of each other. Stick around at the end here, and we're going to take the comments and questions from the YouTube live stream that we're doing as I'm shooting this video. So that way you guys can see all of their comments, questions, and suggestions, and hopefully we get some good commentary from them. All right. I know it's very late. Thank you all for sticking around. We're going to go up to the top and see if we have any comments from the audience. Hi, hello, just got off shift. Thank you for stopping through. Hello, everybody. Why are you awake? Back on nights? Yes, I am. I'm at midnights already now. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning here. Good morning. Good morning. It's 2:04. Good to know. Two Average Noob says, I have heard for shell casings to put the flashlight parallel to the ground and you can see casing shadows better. Is this true? It is true, and that's the crux of the video that I'm pointing to. For more on that, check the video up there and or down below. I'm going to put links to all of that. Especially with your spotlight, get the spotlight far off down the street. Use the lights that are close to the car to look close. Put your spotlight down the block, and it's going to make it easier to see those casings way down the block, because at a high incidence, a high angle to the street, so you're shining your light more parallel to the street, you're going to make long, dark streaks for anything that's sitting in the road. Now, it can be difficult with shell casings if there's a lot of junk on the road, because if there's a lot of junk on the road, that's going to leave long streaks, and you have to go check those out. But if you see a long streak with a glint at the end of it from glinting back off of the casing, go check that thing out, especially because that's likely a shell casing. J1559 says, tumbleweave, shoes, and crushed packs and Newports. If it is a fresh pack, the fighting will be worse. That's true, man. That's very true. Love the channel, man. Keep it up. Yeah, your packs of cigarettes, people don't. I have very, very rarely ever found a fresh pack of cigarettes sitting on the ground. If it's fresh, likely that's where your incident happened at. Abzo YT says, do you have a red dot on your duty sidearm? If no, if so, which? Why did you install it? I don't have a red dot on my pistol. We're just coming around with policy now at my department. And contrary to popular belief, I don't have a lot of money. So I don't just jump into a new duty pistol all willy-nilly. It's not like, hey, it's been 6 months. Let me go buy another $1,000 thing. You can't just take into account the cost of the pistol and then the red dot. You then have to think about, you have to put a light on it, and then you have to buy a holster for it. You're probably buying new mags if you're transferring over to a new pistol, which I would want to. So it's an expensive project. When my department finally squares away red dot sights for duty pistols, we're going to try a bunch of them out, and once I have some actual time on those red dot sights, and I see the way the wind is blowing with durability with a bunch of them, and with the different pistols that are available, then I'll make a decision. I don't just jump into something because it's the new cool thing to do. I'm not running a firearms training school. I'm an actual cop out on the street, and because of that, I'm very conservative in the gear that I'm going to jump into when it's something like a pistol or handcuffs, things like that. I want to see that it works before I go out and use it. Two Average Noob says, to be honest, I have been here for years, so your video is probably where I heard that from. Man, I was a sophomore in high school in class watching your videos. Ha ha ha. Thank you for making me feel old. Jeremy Martinez says, how did departments treat work as a freelancer when you apply? Well, that's not really applicable to this video, but we're going to catch you on the live stream here for you. If you have incorporated a company, then you are self-employed. If you are just catching cash on the side, doing something, a lot of places won't actually count that as employment. So keep that in mind. So if you're like mowing lawns for money in college, it's a harder sell that that's employment history. However, if you have, Martinez, if you have like Martinez Landscaping, and Martinez Landscaping has an LLC and owns a truck and a trailer and 4 lawnmowers and has 2 employees, then you're self-employed, and that's entirely different. That's definitely good employment history. Two Average Noob says, haha, young at heart, and young in your joints is all that matters, man. Young in my joints, I'm not. Abzo YT says, do you carry a plus one stock Glock magazine or normal 15 round one for your G35? I'm still carrying a 40 caliber G35. It's kind of my best bet with the ammunition I'm required to use at work. Got a whole video on that. You know, why cops use 40. Um, Gunshots. Well, that's fun. Anyway, there's a whole video called Why Cops Use 40. And I'm using the stock 15 round Glock 25/35 magazines for that pistol because I found those to be the most reliable in the gun. The 22 round ones do work really, really well, but they're a little more awkward to carry around and they stick out far from the gun. I guess I could use them on a reload, but then you're using two different types of magazines, it kind of becomes a mess. I don't like plus anything mags because I found that long term the reliability suffers on them. And with a duty pistol, this isn't competition where we're losing points. This could even be losing my life. So I just go with whatever's the most reliable thing to use on that gun. Torres says, what's the difference between silver and gold badges? There really isn't a difference. Legally, everywhere that I'm aware of, there isn't a difference between a silver badge and a gold badge. But what most places are using that to denote is a silver badge is for an officer or an employee level person. So your firefighter, your police officer, things like that. And then a gold badge is going to be for supervisors. And I know a lot of places that have some sort of hybrid badge where they'll change the shape of the badge. So it'll be a two-tone, like a gold star on a silver shield. Like if an agency has a silver star as their badge, they'll maybe have a gold star on a silver shield or a silver star on a gold shield, or they'll two-tone the badge. They'll make the middle of it gold, but the outside of it silver, and that's like your detective or your specialty unit stuff. And the gold badges are for supervisors. Some places it's a silver badge for anybody that's officer level, and then if you're a supervisor, a sergeant or above, or a corporal or above, you'll have a gold badge. And then if you go to a specialty division, a temporary job that you have. So I might be a police officer, and on the street I would wear a silver badge, but if I was put in the tactical unit or a detective, I would get a gold star instead to show that I'm doing some sort of specialty job. It's just kind of an extra thing they give you for doing a cool new job. You know, it makes people feel special, having a different color, a different shape or style of badge. Kenneth Christensen says, do you think pepper spray is a good weapon? Do you think? I don't think it's a good weapon. And I've talked about things like, light as a weapon. Put a link up there too. It's not a weapon. It's something that can buy you time. And when laws allow you to use it in a almost preemptive manner against people that you know are going to fight, pepper spray can be effective. But the way most agency policies are written where I'm at, it's just not, because I have to wait till people are fighting before I deploy it, which at that point, it's of nominal use, in my opinion. Abzo YT says, I'm speaking about the Glock extended magazine with pinky extension, 17 plus 2, G22 plus 1, not any aftermarket stuff. Is this one less reliable than normal one? I haven't found any extensions on magazines that aren't less reliable. When you add an extension on a magazine, you're extending the size of the tube, but you're not increasing the weight of the spring, at least not normally properly, to account for the extra distance that spring's going, which means the first round coming into the mag is either a little tighter than it normally would be, or the last round coming out, it's a little looser. And we don't want to be messing with spring rates with guns. We leave everything stock as much as we possibly can. And the reliability drop that you get for a little bit of an extension is not a big deal for a competition pistol, but for a police duty weapon, I would rather go to a longer stock magazine than add an extension onto it, even ones that are, marketed as a factory extension. Just give me my stock 15 round mag. I know it works. Now, if somebody wants to send me an extended mag and I will throw it in with my training bag of mags and they can tell me, hey, this one's just as reliable as the stock one, that's great. I'll give it a try. I haven't seen anything that's that reliable yet. Daryl McCallahan, 111, says, do you think law enforcement will follow unconstitutional orders in Virginia? See, the problem is you're talking about a whole bunch of different agencies and a whole bunch of different people. Do I think everyone will? No. Do I ever think everyone won't? No. You're going to have people coming down on political sides on this issue. You've already seen that with sheriffs and police departments there. Flat Hole says, is it legal for a civilian to carry an ass baton for self-defense? I don't own a firearm and I don't trust mace. Batons and pepper spray are regulated differently in different states and different countries. I can't possibly know whether or not it's legal where you're at. In Illinois, where I'm at, you can carry pepper spray, OC spray, or an extendable baton as long as you don't intend to use the same unlawfully against another, which I know is really weird, language, but basically it says if you're not going to look to attack another person. It's my current understanding. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but that's my current understanding of the law here. Now, in your state, I don't know whether that's legal or not. Jeremy Martinez says, in the military, silver ranks are always higher. I don't know if always and military and the entire world is true, but in the U.S. military, I know that's generally true. In law enforcement, generally speaking, silver is the lower grade in star for the job that you're doing, and gold is higher. Most places like gold is, everybody that's a supervisor is wearing a gold accoutrement, we call them, and then everybody wearing silver accoutrement is a patrol officer level. Super Gamer and then a bunch of fives says, would you recommend using a baton as a starter self-defense tool? It's definitely not a starter self-defense tool. The baton can be very useful for a police officer or security guard breaking up a fight, but as a self-defense tool, it has limited application for your average person on the street. It could be useful if you get jumped by a bunch of people who are not armed with weapons. It could be useful in knocking things off of shelves, which realistically is what I use mine for the majority of the time. But as a defensive weapon, if somebody attacks you and you're responding to that attack, it's very hard to do so with a baton. In law enforcement, what we would generally use is either the taser or hard hand techniques at that point to gain distance to then deploy some other type of weapon. But a baton is not going to be something where somebody punches you and you pull out a baton, because by the time they punch you, they're already going to be on top of you. I mean, that's the reality of fighting. Daryl McCallahan says, would you prefer to pepper spray a person? Do you know it's going, if you know they're going to fight, or just go hands-on? I would prefer to go hands-on with the current policies that I have to work inside of. OC spray, I haven't found it to be very useful for much of anything except getting people out of closets. Sometimes you can use it against dogs, which is a great option instead of having to shoot said dogs. If you know you're going to have to go in an area and there's a dog inside and your departmental policy allows it, you can OC the dog, and dogs tend to really not like that stuff. They have a lot, like their senses are very heightened compared to ours, especially their sense of smell. You spray a little OC and dogs don't like that at all. It's always also very useful for if your dog likes to dig holes in your yard and they're trying to dig a hole underneath the fence, take your can of OC spray, get a little spritz right in that hole, and the dog will decide it doesn't want to dig in that spot anymore. Tactical Mall Cop put $5 in the Donuts Fund and said, here's some donut money, cheers. Cheers to you. I really appreciate it. J1559 says, have you done a video on navigating in-house politics and in fighting at the precinct? And if not, would you consider it? That would be something that really surprised me when I first got on. The problem is politics is different everywhere at every police department. I really couldn't make a video on navigating politics because I'm not a politician. I'm a street cop and I train other people how to be street cops. And I try to stay out of the politics of my town. I try to stay out of it as much as I can. So I don't know if I'm the best person to teach that. What you want is somebody that was a cop and then went into politics. And there's quite a few people that have been cops and then went into politics, especially at local levels. Jeremy Honeycutt says, I'm 18 years old in Texas and I want to be a cop, but I'm not interested in college nor military advice. There are places that you can work There are places that you can work that don't require college or military service. Be advised, though, that most of those places are not going to pay as well as ones that require some level of education or military experience. What you can do is go into a trade where you get job experience, life experience, and then you can flex that into a police department job. Sometimes also, if you get a job for a place that has a police department, I know people that have been janitors or maintenance workers at a community college and then got a job on that community college's police department. So then once you're certified by a police department, it makes it a lot easier to transfer to other places. A lot of them will allow you to circumvent those military training, those military experience or college degree requirements if you have a previous certification or you already work for the place that you're applying for a job at. It's a very good question. Thank you. Abzo YT says, what do you think about J-frame 327 mag revolvers gives you +1 compared to your current one? I think the ammunition is extremely expensive and will probably disappear. So why buy into it? I have never seen one in person. And I've very rarely seen the ammo for it. So why jump into that to have something that I'm only going to be able to use like 32, what is it, like 32 long you can use in those? I wouldn't jump in there. Especially with how good the performance is of 9mm snub nose revolvers. You can get performance between 38 special and 357 mag with some 9mm loads, the short barrel 9mm loads out of a J-frame revolver. And I think that may be the way that the revolver market moves in the future. The only reason I would see it not going that way is that you have people who are too traditionalist to realize that 9mm is going to give them as much or more performance than 38 special in a smaller package. You should start having J-frame revolvers that are actually shorter, smaller in all dimensions that shoot 9mm. I think that would be really cool. Super Gamer and a bunch of five says, what do you think about my country saying pepper spraying people is so rude? This is so stupid. I don't know. They think it's rude. All right, well, if somebody pepper sprayed me, that would probably move me to violence, so I guess it is rude. Kenneth Christensen says, would you say pepper spray is good for civilian or just harmful? Well, here's the thing. What pepper spray allows you to do is blind your attacker if you get it into their eyes. And it doesn't go away very fast. So you can spray someone, if your goal is to get away from someone and they have you cinched up, you can spray them in their eyes and then get away. I'm not saying it's completely useless. I'm just saying for work, where I'm at. In fact, you've seen videos of me before. I carry pepper spray when I'm off duty. If I have a jacket on, I keep a can of pepper spray in my pocket. It's really useful for some stuff. It is a tool, but it is not the tool that people make it out to be. I see lots of stuff on YouTube channels talking about how great the stuff is. It's not that great. It is a tool. It is something you can use, but I think a lot of those is kind of the same as the people talking about shining lights in people's eyes and that working as an effective tool. It can buy you a little bit of time. So if somebody cinches up with you, you can hit him with a pepper spray. A dog goes to attack you. Dog snarling at you, but it's not biting. You can hit it with the pepper spray. I mean, it's a useful tool, but that's like saying, now that we have nail guns, we don't have to use hammers. We don't. No. We have nail guns. Nail guns do one small segment of what hammers do. Right? These are two different tools. They do similar things, but they're very different tools. So, pepper spray doesn't take over the job of a taser. The taser and pepper spray don't take over the job of the baton. The baton doesn't take over the job of pepper spray or the taser. But of those three, I would rather have the taser and the baton because I think that works the best for the widest variety of problems that we have to solve. And all of those problems are the problems that come up like that I don't have time to respond to. Where OC spray is better for situations where I have the time to go back to the car. You get somebody hemmed up inside of a small confined area like a closet, and you're like, you need to come out, or we're going to spray pepper spray in there, and you're going to come out because you're going to be choking it out. Okay, we're going to spray pepper spray in there, or you need to get into a yard, like you need to get into the yard right now, and there's dog barking at you at the fence. You can hit them with a little OC spray, the dog runs away. You don't have to shoot the dog. You can get in there, grab whoever it is that's having a problem. We had a case one time a few years ago where a dog had bit a kid. The kid was in the yard, wasn't getting up. We didn't want to have to shoot the dog. We weren't sure that it was that dog that bit the kid. That could have been the kid's dog. You get into all those issues. You never want to have to shoot somebody's animal. Hit it with a little, go to the car, hit it with a little OC spray, get in there, grab the kid, get him out, close the gate back up. Dog's over there, moaning and whining and rolling on the grass, but at least we didn't have to shoot it. And by the next day, it's just a bad memory for the dog. Montana Adams says, I just got up so I can go to work. Do you have any tips for someone who works morning shift? Coffee. Lots and lots of coffee. Daryl McCallahan, 111, says, Postman and UPS aren't shooting any dogs or pepper spray. Don't hurt the animals. Exactly. If you can get away with just pepper spraying it, that's a good option. But I've never found a circumstance where it was like, I have to do this right now. What actually works really well on dogs, if they're just like yipping at you and they're trying to protect their territory, you can take a baton and just kind of scoot them out of the way. A lot of the little yipper dogs works really well. What you don't want is to do that with your foot, because some of them will latch on. They can latch onto the baton all they want. That's fine with me. RoboCop says, I personally hate using pepper spray at work. It's a huge pain when you're fighting someone, you get it secondhand and third hand and fourth hand. It gets all over the cells in the station. It gets all over the back of the car or whoever's transporting. Now you got to smell this stuff all day. Hey, it might be fine in the summer when you roll the windows down, but in the winter, having someone in the back seat of your car that got OC sprayed, that is a pain in the butt. Two Average Noobs says, do you think that joining a combative unit in the military instead of college is a better route to go than just college? For getting into a police department, no. What you do in the military really doesn't matter. I've never found a police department that was like, ooh, we want people that are combat arms. No. They don't care if you cooked food in the military. What they're looking at is, did you do something that's kind of selfless for the government? You've worked for the government before. You've got good solid job history. We know you can stick around for 4 to 8 years. We know that you understand discipline, that you understand how to wear a uniform. They're looking to tick all of those boxes and that you have life experience. And to say thank you for your service to our country. They don't care whether you're in a combat arms unit. I've never seen that as a requirement anywhere. Joshua Dingus says, I currently work in corrections and I would rather use soft/hard hand techniques on a combative inmate. OC spray is to confined areas of pain. I would tend to agree. Robert Warham says, are tasers legal for civilians to carry? In many areas, sorry, I have to restart my camera. This is going a lot longer than I thought it would. In many areas they are. In Illinois, they're not. They're restricted as firearms, but not allowed to be carried under a handgun concealed carry permit. So this is one of the few states that they're not, but in most places they are legal to carry. Check your local laws. Abzo YT says, do you carry a reload for your J-frame? Generally not. If I wanted more than 5 rounds, see, I have this policy with carrying on and off duty, right? It's a layered approach. If the percentage of getting into any type of armed encounter is 0%, I can't even fathom a way that I would get into some sort of armed encounter, then I carry the J-frame. If it is between 0 and 0.1%, I carry a full-size pistol. And if it is 1% or above, it's rifle time. That's it. That has worked out very well for me, especially at work. When I'm thinking about whether I'm going to deploy a rifle out of the trunk, do I think it's more than 1% likely? Would 1 out of 100 of calls like this turn into some sort of armed encounter? Yes, rifle time. Dom says, can people have handcuffs? As far as I'm aware, everywhere I'm aware in the United States, that's perfectly legal. There might be a rule against it somewhere, but everywhere I'm aware of, owning handcuffs and even carrying handcuffs is perfectly legal. Now, you may get looked at really, really funny trying to carry them in certain areas, and they might be restricted by like TSA and stuff, but just out and about on the street, in most areas, it's legal. Of course, you have to check your local laws, but if it's legal in Illinois, Two Average Noob says, you still sick? No, it's very cold in here. Dana Bearwood says, how does 357 SIG feel like when shooting? Feels a lot like 40. Super Gamer 55555 says, who are you talking to? Camera? Yep. That's the camera. Kenneth Christensen says, when can you use OC spray in your state? In my state, the state doesn't have any restrictions, but it's departments that have restrictions on when we can use OC spray. Frank Garcia says, what's the best way to deal with sovereign citizens while on duty? Or what's the best way to approach? The best way to deal with sovereign citizens is to treat them no different than everyone else. If the average person on the street told you, well, I don't have to have a driver's license. Nope. Nope. There's nothing special. The problem with sovereign citizens is that what they want is special treatment. Just don't give them special treatment. If the average person on the street, I pulled them over and I told them, hey, I need your license and insurance, and they said, I'm not required to have a license. Here's my ID card that I printed in my basement that says I'm not required to have a license. Would I listen to that? No, they would end up arrested, which is what happens to sovereign citizens. When they start talking gobbledygook laws, I treat them like anyone else who was just non-compliant and wanted to talk about the gobbledygook laws. I don't care. That's not... Now, we have to understand that sovereign citizens can be more dangerous than your average person on the street. So we have to take into consideration that they're more often armed when they're doing these types of encounters, that there could be an ambush situation because that's the type of stuff that they're doing. But we don't treat them legally any different than any other person who is trying to pull the same scam. It's no different because the laws that they're talking about, they mean nothing. It's gobbledygook. It's legal mumbo jumbo. AbsoYT says, have you had any experience with a person alerting 911 through a GPS tracker security app like WayGuard? Yeah. These apps are run by the user, especially when at foot or at night, and allow tracking for safety. Yeah, the problem is they only work if your GPS is active. And they don't give a live GPS feed. It's not like Find My iPhone. Lots of times what it gives is every 5 or 10 minutes, you can ping it and it'll tell you where it's at. And it takes 7 or 8 minutes for dispatch to get the paperwork together, to send it to them, to get the ping, because it's all worked through the cell phone service and your GPS. It ends up being a nightmare. Most of the time when people have used those, what I've ended up doing is having to go to their house and contact their family and find out where they were at, and then go have to track them down, because if they don't have their GPS on, it doesn't tell you exactly where they're at. So you have to know how those things work. Because it says it does a certain thing doesn't mean that's exactly what it's doing. It might not automatically turn your GPS on, which can be a big problem. The technology, I will say this about it, the technology is not mature. When the technology matures, it might be great. But currently, that tech is just not matured. Kenneth Christensen says, can you tase dogs? Yes, but you have to turn the taser sideways because the probes extend out from the bottom of the whole video on how tasers work. Go check that out. Jace M. Outdoors said, should I ask for hazard pay when the wind blows the pepper spray back toward you? I guess I could, but no one would give it to me. Tactical Mall Cop says, some departments prefer military police as a military background, but do not require it. I've never heard of any place preferring MP experience. Be interesting to know that, though. Two Average Noob says a taser is so hard to effectively use, and the tasers Leos use are illegal in almost every state. No, that's not true. Tasers are extraordinarily easy to use if you have the proper training and experience with them. The problem is most people don't use them very much. And so it's kind of akin to the person who buys a baton and thinks that they're suddenly going to be able to fight people with the baton or OC spray or boxing gloves or a gun or anything else. You have to know what you're doing with it. If you know what you're doing with a taser, tasers can be extraordinarily effective. They're a very powerful, very useful tool, but they are not difficult to use on their face. And also, In most states, it's perfectly legal for you to own the same taser that I own. The laws do not say what taser you're allowed to use. A taser restricts who they sell their taser devices to. So it's something to keep in mind. But even if you're a private citizen, oftentimes they will sell them to particular people. So you can get like a Taser X2, they're law enforcement model tasers. You can get those if bounty hunters, bounty hunter boot camp, high-end security companies, big firms, they can buy law enforcement level tasers because the tasers that are sold on the consumer market are not designed for the same application that they are in the law enforcement, bounty hunting, security market. For law enforcement and bounty hunting or security, you want that 5-second ride, hit them, it goes for 5 seconds, and you can handcuff them up under power. For the consumer market, they run 20 seconds. So you hit them, and then you drop the device and you run away. It's to buy you time to run away. These are two completely different applications, and they're different types of tasers. Everywhere that I'm aware of that regulates tasers doesn't say which taser you're allowed to have. And in fact, the law enforcement ones would be yet less useful for a person who is trying to commit crime because they have a lower automatic cycle. Flat-footed Patriot says, when in doubt, rifle out. I go by the 1% rule, but if there's a question in my head, rifle's coming out, especially if there's multiple officers that are on scene. We get a shooting or a homicide in the middle of the street. Hey, somebody was just shot here. Somebody might come back and shoot here again. That's been known to happen. We're taking the rifle out, especially if nobody else has one. Jade Helm 2880 says, is having insurance like CCW safe for civilians worth it? It could be worth it. I don't know, honestly. I've never worked with CCW insurance. I have supplementary insurance for when I'm working side jobs. I've never had to use that either. But I pay it because, hey, for the price, it's literally cheap insurance. Dan Bearwood says, put $5 in the donut fund and said, for midnight fuel, cheers. Thank you very much. Now I got to go get $10 worth of donuts. RoboCop says, would love to see a video on shotgun versus rifle for patrol use, advantages and disadvantages of both. If I did that, it may have to go up just on Instagram. YouTube has been severely restricting all firearms-related videos. In fact, everything that I have that has a gun in it right now is demonetized. So that's kind of the route that they're going. So if I did that, I'd have to be on a different platform. I'm not opposed to doing that, but it's one of those things, those other platforms have to get bigger for it to be worthwhile me doing that. So go follow me on Instagram. Go subscribe to my podcast. Follow me on Facebook so that when I post things like that, there's stuff on Instagram that isn't on YouTube just because it's a better platform for that. Follow me across those platforms. Tactical Mile Cop says, if your profession doesn't require you to have handcuffs, then why own them? Well, I'll tell you that my handcuff comparison video got lots of comments, honest, earnest comments, and some emails from people asking me about using them for bedroom activities, where people were honestly interested in it because handcuffs, if they're used improperly, can be dangerous, and they were asking which ones would be safest to use for bedroom activities. So there's lots of reasons to own handcuffs. Super Gamer and a bunch of five says, what does it really feel like when you are being tased? People said it hurt your muscles. Getting tased feels like getting electrocuted because it is. So, you ever touch like a 9-volt battery to your tongue? It feels nothing like that at all. It's crazy. It is really painful. It's like the worst pain I've ever felt. I've been tased, I think, 4 or 5 times now. Once was on video on the channel. You can check through the channel. If you're watching, check through the channel and find the videos of me getting tased. I think it was the Taser vs. Bulletproof Vest video that I got tased for it as a control. Mainly because I thought it would make the video blow up, which it did. But it really, really, really hurts. So what it does is the electricity runs through, not a doctor, runs through all your musculature, and it basically takes over and locks your muscles up tight, right? So it's like the best back workout you've ever gotten for that 5 seconds. And it is the best 5-second workout you're ever going to get. I mean, it's like all your muscles tense up. The stronger you are, the more getting tased in the back hurts because your muscles like rip your sockets out like almost on a joint. Like it tightens, and the stronger you are, the more it hurts because you're hurting. Like all that muscle is firing all at once. It's crazy. Daryl McLennan 111 says, "Go to bed. I got to go to bed. Thank you for answering my question." You're very welcome. Please stop by again. Subscribe. Hit that notification button, brother. Kenneth Kirison says, what do you mean the state has no rules on it? All right, we'll take that one by one. The state doesn't set any specific rules on law enforcement where I'm at on when we can deploy and use pepper spray. We are governed on what force we can use and how, mostly by case law. Statutes are not exact on what weapon you can use and what level of force you can use, at least not in my state. It's the law is mostly case law based, and there's not a lot of case law on pepper spray specific to Illinois that I'm aware of. At least none that would be applicable to me because my department regulates it much stricter than all the case law does. The second part, like when can you use it on someone as a civilian? Well, I'm a civilian. I'm a civilian law enforcement officer, so I'm a cop, and cops aren't military. But as your average person, if someone's attacking you, you can spray them. That's good to go. And then it's a matter of disparity of force. So if you're the little old lady, like if you're a little old lady and some big guy says he's going to kick your butt and you spray him, I don't think there's anybody that's going to arrest you. But if you're the big guy and the little old lady says she's going to kick your butt and you spray her, probably going to go to jail. It's a matter of disparity of force and whether the force you use is reasonable. DeBrock put $5 in the donut fund and says, thanks. You are very welcome. Thank you, DeBrock. I appreciate. Tactical Mall Cop did in all uppercase, lowercase, the little meme language. Article 4, free inhabitant. Yes, very funny. Tyler Diggins says, where are you a cop at? I like to tell people, if you think of like the state of Illinois and Indiana like an armpit, right? Like, and the state line is right here, and like Gary, Indiana's here, and Chicago's right here. I work right here in the armpit. Tactical Mall Cop says, I thought the C2 and Pulse ran 30 seconds. That's entirely possible. I might be missing up the times. I don't own one. I know it runs significantly longer. It might be 30 seconds. I don't know. Look it up. Tyler Diggins says, the X26 is junk. Hasn't been my experience. Worked really well for me. That's what I use at work. The X2 is way better. I don't dispute that. The X2 is a significantly better force option. Or X7. Haven't used the X7. Didn't know there was one. Jeremy Martinez says, a can of bear spray exploded at my Amazon fulfillment center, and they evacuated the place for a couple of weeks. I can imagine that being the case. Man, pepper spray on cardboard boxes all over, that would be pretty rough. Two Average Noob says, I am a self-employed security guard. What do I protect? Myself. You probably could actually pull that off, but you'd have to look in how you properly license and register and regulate having your own security company. And then you could probably do that in most states. Give that a shot. But I don't think you're going to be like, I'm a security guard for me. I don't think that's probably not going to fly when you get into something. Two Average Noob says, now sell me an X26, please. Man, I don't have them. Mine's from work, and they don't want me to sell it. Liam McClam says, examples for security, check the area. Yeah, same stuff. If you get a fight, I mean, even if you work at like a shopping mall or a housing complex, you get a fight, a call of a fight or shots fired, and you're the first ones there, same stuff. Absolutely the same thing. You might be a little more restricted. Most vehicles being used by security don't have those overhead lights. They don't have alley lights and stuff like that. If you do have them, that's great. You still want to use them. Lots of security companies don't put the time and effort to put spotlights in. So it's sometimes a little more important for security guards to use and have available a couple different types of flashlights. We've looked at a bunch of them on the channel before, big floodlight flashlights, because, well, Cops will have the car and a lot of equipment mounted to the car. A lot of security companies don't provide that. So it's a very excellent question. You want to do all the same stuff, but you may have to bring more of your own gear. Thank you, Liam McClam, for the actual topic related question. Security says, welcome to Canada, where tasers are a no-go for anyone except cops across the country. There's lots of stuff like that in Canada. Except if it's attached to a baton long enough to not be a restricted device, because that makes sense. Oh yeah, of course, makes perfect sense. Joe Pepe says, do you think de-escalation training could have prevented the USS Liberty incident? I'm not familiar with that incident, and de-escalation training isn't really a real thing. That's something that people invented about 3 years ago now. All the stuff that they teach in de-escalation training, everybody learns from other people and in field training, which is like what I do. That's all stuff that you learn in field training. You learn from talking to people how to de-escalate situations. If you're working at an agency where nobody knows how to de-escalate a situation, just quit. If somebody actually has to come into your agency and teach a de-escalation class because nobody there can give other people advice on how to de-escalate a situation, you need to leave because you're in a dangerous situation. That's how you end up getting into unnecessary fights. Super Gamer and a bunch of fives says, what's your favorite game? I used to love Call of Duty. I used to love race car games. Now I've got kids and have done a lot of crazy stuff at work. And I really, really love playing Mario Kart with my daughter. That's my favorite video game now. Liam McClam says the next 26 is about $1,000 on Amazon. Yeah. Frank Garcia says, what's your opinion on non-lethal beanbag 12 gauge for duty? There is no such thing as a non-lethal beanbag round for the 12 gauge. As far as I'm aware, you can have less lethal. It literally means they're less lethal. Sometimes they like to call them less than lethal. That's stretching it a little bit, I guess, when used perfectly properly on a healthy adult. But there have been many cases of 12 gauge beanbag rounds being lethal when people use them on folks that they probably shouldn't have been using them on, like elderly people, or using them too close. You still have to be very careful with them. We don't use them a lot for work. The couple things that we have for those distant impacts is we use 37 millimeter launchers. And 37 millimeter launchers are really effective, but you, again, have to be really careful with them. B says, love your videos. I am a security officer, and your training videos helped a lot with my profession. I'm happy to help. Please give me some suggestions, especially stuff like this. Hey, how do I do XYZ? Let me know, because that's something I can just bang out in the garage really fast. B says, question, what martial arts fighting defense style do you think best applies to your job as a police officer? Jiu-jitsu. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is really useful. Most grappling. Grappling is really, really applicable. I wish I knew more grappling. I want to get a guy that I know on. Actually, I've had him on before, but it was like one of the duty belt videos that we built up a new duty belt for him. He's a huge MMA guy, and he's actually a coach for a couple of professional MMA fighters, and I would love to have him on again doing videos about that. That, and then your defensive tactics and handcuffing techniques. You can learn a lot of techniques when you go to instructor level classes that'll help a whole lot with law enforcement. So that's what I would suggest. If you don't have access to handcuffing classes, especially those instructor level handcuffing classes where you're going to get to be with a bunch of other people that have other ideas other than the person instructing the class, where you can pick things up, go to some sort of grappling or jiu-jitsu class. Robert Werman says, I'm a patch collector. How can I get one of your department patches? I don't trade or sell my department's patches. They would get really pissed about that because there's no way for me to buy that from them. So I do have channel patches. I wish I had one on me right now. I don't. But I have channel patches, and I sell those on my website. There's a link down in the description. Jen Spalier says, what time is it when you live? It's probably 3 by now. People talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right, let me see if we have anything else that's applicable or any super chats because it's getting late. I got to go to sleep. I've got a big day of taking the kids to the museum tomorrow. DeBrock says camera angle is like sitting. Well, look, I'm shooting with an A camera. This is just the live stream, so I'm sorry for the weird angle, but I have to be able to read this. Jade Helm 2880 put $2 in the donut fund and just said free field Krispy Kreme. Thank you very much. I appreciate Jade Helm 2880. I wish he'd asked a question. Actually, I think he did earlier. B, who asked a question that I answered, put $5 in the donut fund. Thank you very much, B. I appreciate that. Tyler Diggins says you will miss tons of important things as a police officer or deputy sheriff. Comes with the profession. You really just get used to it. I've never gotten used to it. I'm going to take my kids to the museum tomorrow, even if it half kills me waking up and drinking coffee, even though I'm on midnights. I'm going to get up, I'm going to take them to the museum because it's important to spend time with your family because it's what keeps you normal. And I would never claim to be normal, but I don't want to be the guy that's just like, well, I'm just going to give up. B says, is there anything you were taught at an academy level that didn't ever apply in real police work? Yeah, lots of it. Lots of it. Most of the defensive tactic stuff I was taught in the police academy, just like gooseneck and then transfer it around and then hit garbage, doesn't really work in real life. Hiding behind the door of the squad car, that doesn't work in real life. Parking on the street and then walking up to someone who you think is going to run away, that doesn't work in real life. They were really worried about liability and teaching you things the way your chief would want them done in an ideal world, and not so good at teaching you to like stop short and hop out on people and throw them up on the hood, which is what works in real life. They specifically told us not to put people's hands on the hood or on a wall at the police academy, which is just mind-boggling looking back at it. And I hear people talk about it now, and they're like, well, they have something to push off from, and we work in a jail, and you're like, dude, you don't know how to put people's hands in a car. You don't like, hey, put your hands on the car and just let them stand there normally. Like, put their hands in the car, you pull them all the way back, kick their legs apart so they're all like on the ground, like hanging over the ground so they can't push up off of it. Like, you got to know the proper way to use the technique. Let's see if there's anything else. All right, that's it. That's the end of the stream. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Stop by for the stream. Follow me over on Instagram. We do lots of these live streams over on Instagram. Thank you for everybody that stopped by for the YouTube live stream when I originally shot this, that threw comments and questions down there. I really appreciate all of you. Until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other. All right, we can edit that in if anybody has anything more for the live stream. You got any more questions? Any more super chats? Anything like that? Anything that's about checking the area, I can edit it in if I have to. I've got like 2 minutes of battery life left in this thing. Thanks. Good night, my man. Yeet. All right, guys. Take it easy. You guys be safe.